space was not silent for those who knew how to listen. Captain Ethan Cole sat in the command chair of the USC Dauntless, the flagship of the 3rd Colonial Defense Fleet, and listened to the hum of the engines, the muted chatter of the bridge crew, the faint whir of servos in the deck plating. It was the sound of vigilance. Of watchfulness. For years, this sector had been peaceful, quiet shipping lanes, growing colonies, a future free of war. That illusion shattered at 0317 hours. Captain, we're receiving a distress call, New Horizon. The comms officer's voice cut through the bridge noise like a blade. Put it through, Ethan ordered, straightening in his chair. Static hissed over the speakers, followed by overlapping voices, panic-stricken colonists shouting over each other. There were alarms in the background, the distinct scream of breach sirens. This is Governor Hale of New Horizon, we are under attack. Unknown vessels, repeating, unknown vessels have entered orbit. There. The transmission dissolved into a shriek of tearing metal and then, abruptly, silence. The bridge went still. Get me visuals, Ethan said, his voice tight. The tactical officer's fingers flew across the console, pulling a live feed from a nearby observation probe. The main holoscreen lit up with an image that made the entire crew inhale sharply. New Horizon's surface was burning. From orbit, they could see black, crescent-shaped ships descending through the atmosphere, their plasma cannons carving molten scars across the planet's surface. Population centers were targeted first, the habitats lit up like firecrackers under precise, merciless bombardment. Who the hell are they? Lieutenant Sarah Vance, his second-in-command, whispered. No match in any database, the tactical officer said, his voice tight. Not raiders. Not pirates. Their attack pattern is systematic. Systematic how? Ethan asked, already dreading the answer. They're not taking resources, Captain. They're eradicating everything. It's cleansing. Another feed lit up, a closer view from an orbital satellite before it was vaporized. A squadron of alien dropships hit the surface, deploying spider-like war machines that scuttled through the ruins, gunning down fleeing colonists. Ethan's jaw locked. Bring us to full combat readiness. Plot a course to New Horizon. Maximum burn. Aye, Captain. The Dauntless leapt into FTL, her engines roaring like a predator unleashed. The crew worked in silence, their faces pale, their movements mechanical. For years, they had trained for the possibility of war. None of them had expected it to come like this. When they dropped into orbit over New Horizon, there was nothing left but smoke and drifting ash. The alien ships had withdrawn, leaving behind a dead world. The crew stared at the devastation in horrified silence. God, Sarah muttered, covering her mouth. Scan for survivors, Ethan said, though part of him already knew there wouldn't be any. Negative, the science officer reported softly. Life signs minimal. Less than 0.02% of the population remains scattered deep underground. Send search and rescue drones, Ethan ordered. Find whoever's left. But before the drones could launch, the science officer went rigid. Sir, I'm reading seismic activity. Multiple locations. It's off the charts. Ethan frowned. Aftershocks from the bombardment? No, sir, she said, her voice climbing. Something is moving under the crust. Something big. The bridge filled with warning tones as the sensors lit up with lifeform readings, massive, dense, biologically impossible. Then, the planet split open. On the holoscreen, chasms yawned like fresh wounds, belching fire and smoke. From the depths, things emerged, colossal creatures, their bodies encased in obsidian-like armor that glistened in the glow of molten rock. Their shapes were wrong, too many limbs, too many glowing eyes, their silhouettes bending the mind as much as the light around them. The first one roared. The sound traveled through the atmosphere, through the vacuum of space, vibrating the Dauntless' hull until Ethan felt it in his teeth. My God, Sarah whispered. What are those? Before anyone could answer, one of the alien warships that had lingered in orbit turned its cannons toward the planet, opening fire on the emerging creatures. It was a mistake. One of the beasts raised a clawed arm the size of a skyscraper and ripped a shard of rock free from the crust. With impossible strength, it hurled the slab into the sky. The rock accelerated like a meteor, punching through the alien cruiser's shields and tearing it in half. Another creature leapt, impossibly, unbelievably, from the planet's surface, using its own muscles and gravity slingshot to close the distance to orbit. It slammed into another warship, its talons carving through armored hull plating like wet paper. The alien fleet broke ranks. Their formations dissolved as they tried to escape, but the creatures were too fast. Too relentless. Within minutes, the attackers were in full retreat, leaving behind wreckage and shattered pride. On the Dauntless, no one spoke. Ethan stood from the command chair, his hands curling into fists at his sides. The destruction of New Horizon had ignited a fire in him, but the sight of those monsters fighting back had chilled him to the bone. "What just happened?" he asked quietly. The science officer shook her head. "Unknown life forms. No match to any known xenobiology database. Whatever they are, they've been under the planet's crust for a long time. Maybe millennia. And now they're awake," Sarah said grimly. Ethan turned back to the screen. Below them, the creatures roamed freely, towering shapes silhouetted against burning ground, their movements strangely purposeful, almost coordinated. He felt an unpleasant chill. "Whoever attacked our colonies," he said finally, "just unleashed something they can't control." And deep in his gut, Ethan Cole wondered if humanity could control it either. The Dauntless was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Ethan Cole stood at the forward viewport, hands braced against the railing, staring down at the burning surface of New Horizon. The monsters, whatever they were, still moved across the planet like titans of old myth, dragging the remains of alien war machines back into the chasms as if claiming trophies. "They're not attacking us," Sarah Vance said from behind him. "Not yet," Ethan replied, though his tone carried no relief. The bridge lights cast sharp shadows across the crew's faces. The battle had left everyone shaken. They had expected war, but they hadn't expected that. "Captain," the science officer called out, breaking the silence, "we're receiving new seismic data from Vega 4 and Vega 6. Identical signatures, multiple points of subterranean activity across both planets." Ethan turned sharply. "You're saying it's not just New Horizon?" "No, sir. Whatever was under New Horizon is under every colony world in Vega sector. And they're all waking up." The words landed like a physical blow. "Plot a jump to Vega 4, Ethan ordered. Let's see what we're really dealing with." The Second Awakening. Hours later, the Dauntless dropped out of FTL into Vega 4's orbit. What they saw chilled the bridge crew to their cores. The alien fleet was already there, its warships in a low orbit, raining plasma down on the surface. This time, though, the bombardment wasn't hitting defenseless colonies, it was hitting moving targets. The creatures had already awakened. Ethan watched in silence as one of the colossal beasts, its black armor glinting in the planetary firestorm, barreled through a forest, uprooting entire swaths of trees. A plasma strike slammed into its back, knocking it down, but then it rose again, roaring with such force that dust clouds erupted for kilometers around it. The roar must have been a signal, because half a dozen more emerged from the ground, converging on the attackers. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice low, "they're fighting back faster this time." Ethan nodded grimly. "They're learning." The Dauntless crew watched as the monsters coordinated with terrifying efficiency. One launched itself skyward, leaping hundreds of meters to intercept a descending alien troop carrier. Its claws sliced the ship in two, raining burning wreckage across the jungle below. Another ripped apart a plasma cannon emplacement, using the weapon itself as a club to batter a second ship until it collapsed. The alien fleet, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, began to retreat again, but not fast enough. "Multiple alien ships destroyed," Tactical reported, voice tight. "They're being slaughtered." Ethan's stomach twisted. A part of him should have felt satisfaction. The invaders who murdered New Horizons people were getting what they deserved. But as he watched the creatures tear the last of the fleet apart, something about the way they moved made him uneasy. This wasn't random destruction. This was organized, efficient, purposeful. Almost strategic. Classified history. Hours later, the Dauntless drifted in high orbit, silent and dark, watching the creatures claim the planet below. The bridge crew spoke in hushed tones, as though afraid the monsters could somehow hear them. "They aren't natural," Sarah said finally, breaking the tense silence. Ethan turned. "Explain." "Sir, I dug through the colonial archives while we were in transit," she said, handing him a datapad. "There's reference to an old project, something called Aegis Protocol. A classified program from the first expansion." Ethan scanned the document, his frown deepening with each line. "Planetary autonomous defense systems," Sarah explained. "The idea was to bioengineer guardians that would protect colonies from hostile incursions, even if the human population was wiped out. They were supposed to be self-sustaining, self-replicating, and dormant until activated by a hostile event." "Guardians?" Ethan asked, glancing back at the screen where a 30-story creature dragged a burning wreck toward a fissure. "Those things?" "It fits," Sarah said grimly. "The project was cancelled after a containment breach. The records say the prototypes were too dangerous, they couldn't be controlled once they were activated. But by then, they had already seeded several worlds. And then we forgot about them," Ethan finished quietly. Sarah nodded. "Until now." The bridge went silent again, everyone absorbing the implication. "We built them to protect us," Sarah said softly. "But we built them too well." The spread. "Captain," the comms officer suddenly shouted, picking up unusual movement. "One of the creatures has left the surface." Ethan spun toward the viewport. Sure enough, one of the Titans was ascending, not jumping this time, but aboard an alien ship it had somehow commandeered. "Are you telling me that thing just figured out how to fly?" Ethan demanded. "Yes, sir. It's using the ship's thrusters manually. Crude, but effective." "Where's it heading?" "Unknown. But it's not staying here." Sarah's face went pale. "They're spreading." Ethan's mind raced. If the creatures could leave their worlds, then they weren't just a defensive measure anymore. They were becoming an offensive force. "Sir," the comms officer said again, quieter this time, "we're receiving fragments of alien communications. Intercepted from their retreating fleet." "Play it." The bridge speakers crackled to life, translating the guttural alien language into a cold, mechanical voice. "Contagion uncontrollable. Worlds compromised. Quarantine protocols failing. Recommend total sector abandonment." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "They're afraid," Sarah said. Ethan nodded slowly. "Good. They should be." But even as he said it, he felt no triumph. Instead, a heavy dread settled in his chest. The unstoppable tide. When the Dauntless jumped back toward the nearest human-controlled system, they found the first reports already coming in. Merchant ships had encountered massive unidentified lifeforms adrift in deep space. A listening post on the edge of the sector had gone dark. "They're not just defending the colonies anymore," Sarah said. "They're moving into the void. Hunting." Ethan stared at the starfield, his reflection in the viewport looking grim and older than his years. "Send a message to High Command," he said finally. "What should I tell them?" "Tell them we've won the battle for Vega Sector," Ethan said darkly, "but not because of anything we did. Tell them we've woken something up. Something we can't control. And it's not going back to sleep." The message was transmitted. Ethan remained at the viewport long after the bridge fell silent again. Because deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just traded one war for another, one that no fleet, no weapon, no treaty could ever hope to end. The briefing room aboard the Dauntless was packed, but no one spoke. The last transmission from Vega 6 still played on the central hollow, static-laced footage of the colony's main city, burning. At the edge of the frame, one of the Titans loomed, its black carapace glistening in the firelight as it dragged a burning alien warship into the city like some kind of offering. Then the feed cut to black. Captain Ethan Cole stood at the head of the table, his hands gripping its edge, shoulders tense. Every officer in the room looked as exhausted as he felt and just as haunted. "This is the fourth world in 3 weeks," Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying in the tense room. The aliens are pulling out of the entire sector. But so are the colonists. No one wants to be near those things. They're not just holding territory, said Commander Rourke, the fleet's operations chief. They're expanding. Reports from deep space beacons confirm multiple sightings. Some of these creatures are using captured alien ships to move between systems. Others are traveling under their own power. Somehow. The room fell silent at that. Ethan straightened slowly. We all know what this means. The war we thought we were fighting, it's over. We didn't beat the enemy. These things did. And now they're loose. He tapped the console, and a new holo flared to life, a star map of human space, glowing with red points. These are confirmed creature sightings over the last 48 hours, Ethan said grimly. They've been reported as far as the Perseus Fringe. That's 6 sectors beyond Vega. They're spreading faster than we can track. Then we have to destroy them, Rourke said sharply. Full fleet mobilization. Planetary bombardments, orbital strikes, whatever it takes. No, Ethan snapped, louder than he intended. The room fell silent. No? Rourke repeated, incredulous. Ethan looked around the table, meeting every pair of eyes. We tried that once, Commander. Or have you forgotten New Horizon? That's what started this. We didn't start it, Rourke shot back. The aliens did. And now we're sitting here letting their mistake turn into our extinction. Sarah interjected, her voice calm but firm. If we attack them, we'll only make them more hostile. The archives made that clear. Once they're fully activated, they're relentless. They were designed to remove anything deemed a threat to the colony. Well, congratulations, Rourke said bitterly. We are now the threat. Earth's High Command. 2 days later, the Dauntless was recalled to Sol. The crew watched in grim silence as Earth grew in the viewport, the cradle of humanity, shining blue against the black. It looked peaceful. Untouched. The illusion shattered the moment they reached orbit. The space around Earth bristled with warships. Entire fleets had been recalled from the frontier, carriers, battleships, destroyers, all arrayed in defensive lines like steel guardians around the homeworld. Inside the Geneva War Council chamber, the air was thick with tension. Admirals and generals sat around the table, their faces hard. You were telling us, Admiral Cho said, her voice measured, that we are now facing a threat of our own making? Ethan nodded once. Yes, Admiral. The Aegis Protocol was never decommissioned. It was buried. Forgotten. And now it's active on every seeded world. General Harris leaned forward, his jaw tight. Then we neutralize it. Wipe out the colonies if we have to. Blast the planets from orbit. Whatever it takes to contain the threat. You'll fail, Ethan said flatly. Murmurs rippled through the room. You saw what they did to the alien fleets, Ethan continued. And those fleets were bigger than anything we can field. You start dropping nukes, they'll just adapt faster. You'll make them see us as the enemy. Then what do you propose, Captain? Cho asked. Ethan hesitated. The weight of what he was about to say settled on him like lead. We don't fight them, he said finally. We talk to them. The room erupted. They're not people. Harris barked. They're weapons. They're alive, Sarah said, stepping forward. They have patterns, behaviors, coordination. That means intelligence. And if they were built to protect us, there might still be a way to make them remember. Assuming they ever saw us as worth protecting, Cho said quietly. Ethan met her gaze. Admiral, if we don't try, we won't have a future left to defend. The broadcast. Hours later, the Dauntless floated alone in deep space, just beyond Pluto's orbit. Its transmitters were powered to maximum, targeting every known colony, every station, every sector of space where the creatures had been sighted. Ethan stood on the bridge, staring at the blinking prompt on the comm console. His voice would be the first contact humanity had with its own creation in nearly a century. Captain, Sarah said quietly, standing beside him, it has to be you. He nodded, drew a slow breath, and began. This is Captain Ethan Cole of the United Systems Navy. To any Aegis units that can hear this, we are your creators. We are humanity. You were built to defend our colonies, to protect our people from harm. That time has come again, but the war is over. The threat is gone. Stand down. He paused, then added softly, if you can understand me, come home. Sarah sent the transmission. It rippled across space like a stone cast into a still lake, spreading through relay satellites and FTL-COM buoys, touching every world where the creatures walked. Then came the waiting. Hours passed. Days. Reports began trickling in. The creatures on Vega 4 stopped moving, gathering in massive herds around the old colony sites. On Vega 6, the last known Titan halted mid-march, its great bulk settling like a mountain as it went still. And then came the most shocking report of all, from a colony on the Perseus Fringe. A human settlement that had been on the brink of evacuation reported that a creature had appeared outside their perimeter and then simply lay down, unmoving, as if guarding the colony instead of threatening it. The choice. On the Dauntless Bridge, Ethan listened to the incoming transmissions, feeling the tightness in his chest ease for the first time in weeks. They're responding, Sarah said, her voice almost reverent. Not everywhere, Tactical reminded her. Some are still hostile. They're not hostile, Ethan said quietly. They're confused. He turned toward the viewport, staring into the endless dark of space. Somewhere out there, millions of tons of engineered muscle and armored hide were waiting, listening. We gave them purpose once, Ethan said. Maybe we can give them a new one. Sarah glanced at him. And if we can't? Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we make sure the galaxy learns the same lesson the aliens did: you don't wake humanity's monsters and live to tell the story. He turned back to the crew, voice steady, resolute. Begin preparations. Every ship, every colony, every beacon, keep broadcasting. If they're listening, we guide them. If they're not. He let the words hang for a moment, then finished. Then we make damn sure they never turn against us. Outside, the stars stretched on forever. Somewhere among them, the creatures stirred and the galaxy held its breath. Because humanity had spoken. And for the first time since the colonies burned, there was a chance, just a chance, that the monsters would remember who they were meant to protect.